Super Bowl 54 is in the books. I will get into all of that today on this episode, as well as the unexpected storyline to come out of this game. I am Chris Benavides. This is the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast. Alrighty, guys, Super Bowl 54 is in the books. I will get into my take on the game itself and all the things that I'm sure everyone has probably heard at this point, but I just wanted to go through a couple of key points that I thought were notable throughout the entirety of the game. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, what I thought I'd do is I'd start with a couple of things that I liked and did not like with the entire day. So let's be honest, guys. The Super Bowl might as well be an American holiday at this point. And so I'm not just going to talk about the game. I'm going to talk about all the things that revolve around the Super Bowl. So let's go into a few things that I liked. So first off, congratulations to Kansas City for winning the game. I had you guys losing, but in a effectively what should have been a close game, or at least closer game. So first off, overall, the game was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. But I'm very happy that the game kind of came down to a fourth quarter showdown that basically forced people to make, decisions. Particularly, we'll get into this in a second with Kyle Shanahan having to make decisions that would effectively either win the game or lose the game for his particular team. But nevertheless, I was very excited to see Patrick Mahomes win and see Andy Reid win. So I don't know if anybody caught the post game with Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But man, Andy Reid, dude, if he was my coach, all right, I'm a New England fan. I got Bill Belichick. Is actually kind of low-key funny if you just do some YouTube digging. But obviously on the surface, if you're not from New England, you would never know that he's actually a pretty funny guy. Andy Reid, dude, this guy is awesome. I think if he was a coach for my team, I'd love him, obviously until he lost the big game. But this time he wins the big game, so he can pretty much do whatever he wants. What I'm referring to is particularly this clip between him, Patrick Mahomes. It's the post-game show, and it's just brilliant. Take a look.
I give him like 3 days. He's gonna be back. Enjoy this. 3 days.
I'm gonna go get the biggest cheeseburger you've ever seen. Prime, the biggest one, and might be a double.
I mean, oh god, it's so great. It's so Andy Reid. Man, that was priceless. It was really, really great stuff. I can just imagine Andy Reid like Squidward in SpongeBob. Don't act like you haven't seen SpongeBob. It's the episode where he's just jumping through the hamburgers, eating everything he possibly can, and good for Andy Reid. He's deserved all of that. So, all right, moving on. Commercials. My goodness, I thought the commercial game was pretty good this year. Overall, there were a lot of ones that I thought were entertaining, particularly, obviously, the Bill Murray one. I'm a huge Bill Murray fan with Groundhog Day. That was incredible. Again, from New England, so I obviously thought the Smart Pack commercial was fantastic. Jesus, the Google Loretta commercial. My God, if you have a heart, man, you were low-key crying inside. Don't act like if you were with your boys, you didn't have like all those feels. If I was by myself, I probably would have broke down and cried. Awesome commercial. There was a couple of other ones that were notable. The Jason Momoa commercial was hysterical. I thought that was great. The Cool Ranch Dorito one, that one was a good one. So yeah, overall, a bunch of commercials that I liked there. Halftime show. Okay. Obviously, the halftime show is always almost as anticipated as the game itself. So Shakira, J-Lo. I mean, wow, you guys were absolutely incredible. I wouldn't say it's the best of all time, but Jesus, I mean, they brought the energy. I thought it was tremendous. I thought like the end of it was like the most energy I've ever seen on any stage. Probably ever, and I've been to a bunch of concerts. My favorite was probably Bruno Mars of all time, and I know I'm going to catch some slack for this, but I thought the Katy Perry halftime show was really great. This one would probably slide in as a third, in my opinion. So well done, ladies. I thought you guys did a tremendous job. I was very much entertained throughout the whole thing. And if you haven't already seen the GIF from Shakira and the GOAT, that was absolutely the best thing that probably came out of the whole show itself. So, that's America's for you. So no big deal there. But overall, yeah, great job. Okay, some things that I didn't like. First off, I mean, since we're on commercials, look, I don't even know where to begin on this one. maybe it's because I'm emotionally wrapped up in it, but the Tom Brady commercial, there were so many things wrong with that commercial. So first off, obviously the highly anticipated decision of where he's going to go is, has everyone wrapped up in the entire league, especially obviously in New England. So he comes out walking on the field, and what's funny about this is that before the commercial aired, Tom Brady had posted, and everyone has probably seen this, and no one really knows what's going on in the Instagram or Twitter posts, is that it looks like he's in the tunnel either walking out or walking in. No one really knows which way he's walking, but he's walking in some direction, and it's just a post. There's no caption, there's nothing. Some people say it was a Kobe Bryant homage or some kind of tribute to Kobe because it was a similar type of picture. Other people have said, he's definitely walking in. Other people have said he's definitely walking out. Truth is, we really don't know. So this commercial airs, and it looks like the same type of graphic that was in the picture. And so, and then he starts off talking like he's got something huge to tell us. Now, the first thing that came to mind was the thing that Gronk had said earlier in the season during fantasy, that he had something huge to tell us. And if you remember at that time, Gronk had till I think it was like the end of November to make a decision on whether or not he was coming back to the NFL. Well, he obviously didn't come back to the NFL, and his big announcement was that he was having a party in Miami. Now, maybe I'm gullible and maybe I was just hoping for the best and didn't prepare for the worst. But I got wrapped up in it. In fact, I had an extra bench spot on my fantasy team. I picked him up like an idiot, okay? I know, bad decision. I got caught up in it. Nevertheless, it felt a little bit like that because the minute everyone was hyped for what Tom Brady was about to say, he starts talking about fucking Hulu. Oh my God. Oh my God. What a terrible, terrible, terrible commercial. It was brilliantly executed from a marketing standpoint in marketing. So I actually work in marketing. That is my profession. In marketing, you want to sort of hook the audience or hook people to do the thing that you sort of want them to do. You want to get their eyeballs paying attention to you. Okay, brilliantly executed. But here's where most marketing people let you down. Usually the hook is never or the hook is always bigger than what's actually about to come next. Okay, so in marketing, in business, if you know anything about business, is make sure your freaking product or the thing that you're about to say or talk about is better than the thing that you just hooked me with. So that way I feel like you earned my attention. When he started talking about Hulu, I was fucking speechless. I could not believe that this is what happened. I almost hate Hulu now more than the Baker Mayfield commercials with his stupid mouth guard in his mouth. Like, the only thing maybe I could say that Hulu did right is they dumped Baker Mayfield and they got Tom Brady. But the way they executed that, those marketing people should be fired. Terrible. I hate Hulu now more than before. And like, the thing is like, I don't know, maybe the point of, I don't know, man, I teeter between marketing. It's like, maybe the point of me talking about it was what they wanted, but like, I don't know, I would not want my product to be talked about in such a negative way. So yeah, was not happy about that commercial. I don't even care that it was about, a non-decision or a decision that Tom Brady was going to make. I mean, maybe we should have just known that was going to be the case, but it was just the way it was executed. I thought it was poorly done and got me fired up. So that was that. Okay, the other thing that I didn't like about the Super Bowl, Fox. Okay, so I think this is the first time Fox has done the game in a while. I'm going to imagine and I'm saying that because of this. The visuals that Fox had for the game, I thought were pretty fucking terrible. I don't know what the hell was going on with that little box in the bottom there. I mean, the only thing that came out of that was that you could kind of see the stat lines off the side, which was fine. But man, I don't know. I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, why do I feel claustrophobic? And my TV screen is not that small. Like, it's a pretty decent sized TV screen. And the boxes were so tiny. I'm just like, I'm just used to that bar at the bottom covering my whole screen. It feels like the scoreboard in a sense is part of, the entirety of the game. And maybe I'm just used to that from a visual standpoint, and I just wasn't used to what Fox had as a visual. So I don't know that I was about the change. It just felt too small. The other thing that I didn't like that Fox did was the cartoons. Well, I mean, like, I don't know. Again, maybe it's just I'm not used to it, but I felt like I was in a comic book. Whenever somebody scored or whenever there was like a big play, it was a cartoon caricature of the person or just a character of the person. And yeah, it just wasn't about it. Wasn't a fan. And I thought that it could have been executed a lot better. So those are the two things I didn't like for the game. All right, now we're going to get into the game itself. So again, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning the Super Bowl. So I had the 49ers winning. I think I picked the score a little bit more high scoring than obviously it was. I think I had something like, I think it was like 38-34. I thought it was going to be a much higher scoring game. I thought San Fran would have had much, or I would say a more consistent and easier time running the ball on the Kansas City Chiefs. But nevertheless, Eric actually on our podcast in episode 42 called the game Kansas City 31-28. So he was about the closest out of all of us. He got the game right and got Kansas City's score correct. He didn't have San Fran's score correct. So Eric was probably the closest that we had for in the Commish crew. But really, I mean, look, I'm gonna go break this down. I'm not even sure sort of where to begin on this. But I'll take a stab and I'll start with Kansas City. So overall, Kansas City was much more aggressive when they needed to be late in the game. And I felt like, and I think the stat line was they were 2 for 3 on fourth downs, and they converted, I think, 6 of let me go back to the stat line real quick here. They were 6 of 14 for third down conversions, which means that basically, the 49ers had Kansas City in more high pressure situations with third downs, and obviously a few on the fourth down scenarios, but they ultimately just converted more than the 49ers. The 49ers played much more conservatively. They were 0 for 1 on fourth downs, and I think they were like 3 for 8 or something to that nature with, I think it was like 3 for 8 with third down conversion. So again, the conversion completion, not terrible, but they didn't complete it when they needed the most. So again, Kansas City obviously had an overall decent game. Mahomes didn't play great. I mean, I'd probably give him a B plus. He was obviously up against, one of the, if not the best defense in the entire league and the best defense we've seen probably in a while in the NFL, and came through late when they needed to. I mean, it was basically their storyline for the entire playoffs, and they pulled it off. And so, good for them for that, because, for much of that game, it was San Fran's to lose. And that's what, at least for me, was the storyline. So what was the storyline that effectively came out of it that I thought nobody had talked about previously, in the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl? Kyle Shanahan is the guy who blew the Super Bowl lead against the Patriots 28-3 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. No one, maybe I missed this and I didn't see it, but no one really talked about Kyle Shanahan potentially being in that scenario again. And that's pretty much what happened, right? So, what was it? 20-10 going into the fourth quarter, and time was eating off the clock on the fourth quarter. And for some reason, I really don't know what happened, but San Fran just kind of went away from what they did best. Stephen A. Smith, love him and hate him simultaneously, but I thought he had a good point here. Check out his clip.
They were like, "You got to be kidding me. What we doing here? How we go away from what we do? They didn't beat us with us being us. We had to listen and defer to this dude who ain't never been on the field. We had to defer to him and what he got us doing. And this dude is coaching scared and went away from everything that we are." Kyle Shanahan has had an excellent year, and he's proven to be pretty much a damn brilliant coach, offensive mind. But I don't give a damn how brilliant you are. The championship, the fourth quarter of a championship, in 2 occasions, you have been outscored 40-0, not including the 6 points in overtime. 40-0.
And he's exactly right. Fact of the matter is that, Kyle Shanahan has effectively become, he's kind of inherited the monkey that was on Andy Reid's shoulder here. He has 2 storylines of very similar patterns. He's blown the lead in the fourth quarter, or, effectively the third quarter for, started in the third quarter for the Atlanta Falcons. But nevertheless, he's the offensive genius, and he could not score any more points. And he was more or less ineffective against Kansas City, who I think was ranked 26th going into that game in run defense. Nick Wright from, I believe it's Get Up on FS1, also had a very similar take. Here he is right here.
2nd and 11, 23-yard line, 3:56 left, up 8. Run the ball and you win the Super Bowl. A field goal wins you the game. 2nd and 5, up 3 in the Super Bowl inside of 6 minutes. You have just gotten 5 yards running the ball. Hey, Jimmy Garoppolo, drop back and pass. Hey, Jimmy Garoppolo, drop back and pass again. Let's take a minute 3 off the clock. When just the drive before, we only took 3 minutes off the clock. You know why? Because on second down, I said, Jimmy Garoppolo, drop back and pass. And on third down, Jimmy Garoppolo, drop back and pass. They hadn't punted the whole game until their 7th and 8th drives, which went 5 plays and 3 plays, and took a combined 4:07 off the clock with a 10 and then 3-point lead in the Super Bowl. Coach,
hard to argue.
It's bad coaching in that spot. It does.
And Nick Wright is, again, exactly right there. It looked like bad coaching. Now, Eric Mangini comes back and basically counters Nick Wright's point to the effect of, it's easy in hindsight to suggest that, Kyle Shanahan made the wrong decision. But if you look at the game plan itself, it may not have been so terrible. So here's Eric Mangini with the counter.
That play that you described, it was, what was it, second and 5. Second and 5. Kansas City responded with blitzes. They had 10 guys in the box. There wasn't much room to run the ball. This ball gets batted down, but he's throwing to a wide open Kittle. Okay, so yeah, it got batted down. The blitz was coming off. You can see the blitz. You can see it coming off the right side, the defense's right side. You're not going to make much headway running the ball. The other thing is, you look at the numbers at that point for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it was 18 for 21.
So Eric Mangini basically is countering Nick Wright's point, and we'll get into Jimmy G in just 1 second. I'm not even going to factor the fact that it was 18. He was 18 for 21. He should have been 18 for 21. But to his point, look, and I'm not a fucking coach, so who am I, right? But I'm just going to tell you what I think here, having played in sports. Look, in football, if you don't have running plays for when the blitz or when you identify a blitz is coming, I mean, I don't know what you're like. Of course they have plays. They have run plays for when they identify a blitz, but they need extra yards. They ran the ball, I believe, was 22 times. They were averaging somewhere upwards of 5 yards to 6 yards a carry. You have 2 shots to get 5 yards to keep the ball and ice the ball with what? I mean, at 6 minutes left in the game or whatever it was at that point. I mean, it was bad coaching. They should have ran the ball more. That 2nd and 5 was one of the pivotal moments in the game. The other pivotal moment, there's a couple of pivotal moments prior to that. There was one before and then obviously one after regarding Jimmy Garoppolo, which I'll get into in a second. But the George Kittle play at the end of the game. Look, when it first happened, I was pulling for the 49ers, so I can imagine how 49ers fans felt. They probably felt like they got hosed. Looking back on that play, on that call, that was offensive pass interference. You cannot tell me that his push on that guy is what caused the separation for him to make that play. So this is effectively, as far as I can see, what George Kittle needs to work on as a receiver. I had heard back on Good Morning Football, Jerry Rice, the great Jerry Rice, was out basically schooling the entire panel. He was with Nate Burleson a couple of weeks ago. A couple of months ago to this point. And he was basically explaining to Nate Burleson, what were the subtleties that made him a great receiver. Now, as a tight end, I'm sure George Kittle, look, he's great. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He's not the greatest yet. He's not Travis Kelce. He sure as heck isn't Gronk. He sure as heck isn't Tony Gonzalez. There are things that he needs to work on to be a better tight end. And you saw it in the Super Bowl. This is the difference between, what could have been the catch and George Kittle having to make, as far as he thought, the push off, right? I think if he had this in his toolkit, he still might have caught this ball. But this is Jerry Rice explaining the subtleties of receiving.
Now, what are the subtleties that you need to have in order to catch this ball up against a top-tier DB?
Well, first, you want to relax the eyes.
Why is that?
Because you don't want the defensive back to know that, to think that the ball is coming.
So if you look, yeah, I'm going to look.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm relaxing my eyes. My head is not just bobbing all over the place.
Right.
And at the last second is when I want to reach out for the ball. So a lot of guys start reaching way too early, and the defensive back going to knock their hand down.
So you're saying the subtleties, if you're looking, yeah, I'm going to look, and if you put your hands up too early, I'm going to shoot through your hands.
So at the last second, this is when I want to do that.
And then the ball
I don't want to do it too early.
Okay.
And basically, what Jerry Rice is explaining here is that he doesn't want to put his hands out too early. He wants to be able to last minute come up with the ball because he has trust in his body, in his hands to make those catches. And, obviously, again, it's hindsight. It's tough. It's tough to look at that play and suggest that George Kittle knew that that's what should have happened. He was just trying to get separation. I get it. I understand. But, that should have been a huge play for the San Francisco 49ers. All right, last point here. On episode 42, although I picked the 49ers, I also said that Jimmy G was going to be the X factor in this game. And it turns out that he should have been the X factor in this game. Nothing against Mahomes. I know that Mahomes played, overall pretty well. I'd give him a BB plus for the game. But Jimmy G, this is where, the men separate from the boys. If he hits Emmanuel Sanders running down the seam in the end zone, he puts it on the money, his life is different. His life is changed. The 49ers go in and they win the Super Bowl. This is what changes people's lives. He just didn't have it. Unfortunately, he's never been known to air the ball out. That wasn't the game plan, but he was put in a position where he could have made that throw. And as a quarterback in the Super Bowl, man, you need to think that those plays are going to happen and you have to drop that on the dime. Fortunately, he wasn't able to do it. So, and that's the difference. And, as far as I'm concerned, the Kansas City Chiefs just made, more plays overall. Mahomes played well. I didn't think that they did anything spectacular to dominate the game. They made just more plays when it mattered, but I thought that San Francisco lost this game as opposed to, Casey winning the game. I'd love to get my boy Sky Guasco's opinion. He is a diehard San Francisco 49er fan. And he seemed pretty cool and relaxed. I was texting him, and he said they'll be back in it. They have a young team. They do have a young defense. But man, that is a tough blow. And I really hope they don't go the way of the Seahawks. And if you did listen to the Stephen A. clip in its entirety, he compared Kyle Shanahan to Pete Carroll. I don't think it's that egregious. I don't think it's that bad of a scenario. But you never know. I really just hope the players aren't going to start to revolt against Kyle Shanahan. They did have a great season. They outperformed their expectations mightily. I think they were like 4-12 the year before. So to make it to the Super Bowl was an incredible accomplishment. And overall, they will be just fine and, even have a shot to win it next year. So, all right, those are my thoughts, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We don't really ever ask for, 5-star reviews or any comments, but if you could, go to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Spotify, leave us a review. Give us those 5 stars. We really appreciate it. You can also find us on social media, both on Twitter and Instagram at the Commish FFP. That's fantasy football at the Commish FFP. Go and follow us right now. All right, guys, thanks so much.